to the Martini Shot. Today we'll be reviewing the Odyssey and getting lost in the slosh with a Greek-inspired cocktail called Poseidon's Wrath. I'd probably be pretty pissed if someone stabbed my disgusting chud son in the eye, too. You never see Poseidon in the movie, but his anger is felt throughout as Odysseus and his crew just get the dog shit knocked out of them on the ocean. So, to get on the god's good side, we'll be making a bubbling blue cocktail that's slightly fruited but also unique in its inclusion of Greek ouzo, an anise liqueur. In a shaker, you'll be needing 3 to 5 mint leaves, a little pinch of sea salt, and half an ounce of lime juice. Muddle those together, making sure you're pressing against the leaves instead of tearing them to get all the juices out. Then on top of that, add half an ounce of blue curacao, half an ounce of ouzo, and 1.5 ounces of white rum. Shake with ice to chill, and then you'll want to double strain that into a coupe glass to keep the mint leaves out. Finally, you'll top it off with a little bit of champagne and garnish it with a mint sprig. And now you have Poseidon's Wrath. Now that we have our drink, let's get right into the review. You know that term, too big to fail? It's usually reserved for conglomerations or industries that would literally plunge the world into disarray if they were to ever collapse. But I couldn't help but for months assign this same title to the Odyssey. Very dramatic, I know. In truth, if this hulking epic were to have been bad, it probably wouldn't be the end of the cinematic world as we know. I like Christopher Nolan. He makes good movies. Is he the messiah of what we can still consider cinema before AI and factory-generated films become the norm? I wouldn't go that far, but even still, I mentally had a lot riding on this movie. Love him or hate him, Christopher Nolan is perhaps the only big-name director working today that somehow has found a happy balance between market appeal and quality filmmaking. Even legends like Spielberg and Scorsese are no longer considered guaranteed box office success like Nolan. Just look at Oppenheimer, a historical drama not about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but about the guy who developed the bombs and then felt sad about it. This sounds like something you'd find playing late at night in 8 parts on the History Channel, and yet it became a billion-dollar movie. That really speaks to the talent that Nolan brings to the table, and now, in a world where movies are market-tested, overly micromanaged, and practically created by shareholders rather than creatives, Nolan has sort of become this bastion for big blockbuster filmmaking, refusing to compromise on a medium that is trying to be watered down and neutered every day. So, is the Odyssey the savior modern film has been looking for? Well, let me tell you what I know it is. It's a staggering product of craftsmanship that can't be easily replicated, no matter how much technology advances. It's a phenomenal adaptation that doesn't just look to boringly translate it from page to screen. It views the text through a new, more modern lens that continues Nolan's hyper-focus on the concept of reaping what you sow. And above all, it's just a damn good movie that manages to be consistently entertaining, always throwing something interesting or captivating at you, while also not sacrificing character growth that makes this more than just pure spectacle. Whether it can be called the definitive adaptation of the Odyssey is hard to say, considering there's no real definitive version of the text. And who knows if this will be the film to get the studio heads out of their studio asses, but for right now, it's a damn good time at the movies, and that's more than enough. If you're like me and haven't touched anything remotely the Odyssey related since high school, fret not, because Nolan manages to make the story pretty straightforward. It's kind of what I always appreciated about him. Despite his rather complex stories, he always finds a way to be as direct as possible without outright holding your hand. Including bits from the Iliad was a smart choice to better add context to the plot, so you can better understand how we got there and where the world ultimately is. But Nolan does get up to his old tricks by telling bits of the story in a non-linear way, but I promise it doesn't make it all overly confusing. Much of the plot is actually told through the lens of one character telling the story to another, which is a great touch to reflect the story's oral history. It jumps around often, but Nolan's tendency for no-frills storytelling keeps things from feeling disjointed or out of place. It would be a daunting task to cover the entire cast in a short amount of time, but there are certainly some players worth talking about. Of course, we probably should talk about Odysseus, played by Matt How Do You Like Them Olives Damon. Damon isn't exactly putting on an acting clinic here, but he does a serviceable job as the hero of legend. The characterization of Odysseus is quite engaging though. Like many heroes of his time, he's honorable yet succumbs to his own hubris on more than one occasion. There's honestly a lot of parallels to Nolan's take on Robert Oppenheimer. Both are the center of a significant turning point in history and are reckoning with the ramifications of their role in it. A big wooden horse was practically like the atomic bomb of its age. But Damon's Odysseus benefits from the actor tapping into not only a place of heroism, but tapping into a place of doubt that his brand of heroism might actually do more harm than good. Robert Pattinson is, unsurprisingly, dominating every scene he's in as the smarmy, conniving Antinous. John Leguizamo plays one of the most compelling roles I've seen from him as Eumaeus, a blind farmer who's connected to some of the film's more emotional moments. Anne Hathaway brings a commanding screen presence as Penelope, a woman seen as an object to be won rather than the current ruler of her kingdom. And special shout out to Benny Safdie's Agamemnon. He doesn't do much outside of aura farming, but how can you not with armor like that? There really isn't an instance of a bad performance here, although some were a bit more underwhelming than others. I'm still kind of waiting for Tom Holland to have his true movie star moment. You know, that one performance that sort of rockets him to a whole new level of impressiveness. This was not really that performance for me, as his character felt rather restrained, lacking any real screen presence, which is kind of unfortunate considering he's the son of Odysseus. Same goes for Charlize Theron's Calypso, a terrific actress who just doesn't leave her mark on any scene she's in despite being a pretty pivotal character, though maybe this can just be chalked up to her characterization as we don't really get to learn too much about her. I went into this pretty confidently, thinking that while this was sure to be a spectacle of a film, I wasn't really going to be blown away by anything I saw in this. Boy, was I wrong! There are some moments in this that are so striking, so mind-burrowing, that I was left in shock and awe during and after experiencing them. A lot of this comes down to the complete technical mastery on display here, both in what you see and what you hear. Take the Cyclops, for example. It's a moment I was well familiar with, and yet this sequence made my skin crawl and my stomach twist in knots. The design is downright frightening, existing in the realm of the uncanny valley, but not in a cheap-looking way. More like a bastardization of the human form that makes me want to cover my eyes kind of way. Through a mix of practicality and puppeteering, the sequence is staggeringly impressive, and its commitment to not relying on an overabundance of CGI gives the whole thing an old-fashioned feel that was super welcome. And god, the sound design. This is a loud movie, and a lot of times it's meant to make you feel super uncomfortable. Well, with scenes like this, the dinner with Cersei, and the Skyla attack, I'd say mission accomplished. And it's just so goddamn refreshing to have a movie like this and have it not look like it was shot in the volume like everything else. These settings are gorgeous and mystical just from harnessing their natural beauty. People will tell you on-location filming doesn't make much of a difference, but trust me, it does. Coming in close to 3 hours long, the film does occasionally buckle under the weight of trying to cover all of its bases, but never to a point where I was finding myself mentally checked out. There's dips here and there, and some repetition in the soldiers arrive on an island only to be chased off structure of the story, but everything is heightened with the level of care and attention Nolan is known to bring to his work. But one thing that did kind of take me out of the film from time to time is the decision to use fairly modern American dialogue. Look, there's no real right way to go about this, as we don't know exactly how the ancient Greeks were talking. They definitely weren't talking in British accents, which these things tend to default to, but some of the language was just a bit too casual for me. It did make the world feel a tad more natural at times, but other times it kind of made it feel more like a deliberate stylistic choice that didn't always work for me. I'm kind of down the middle on it, as hearing Tom Holland say dad just didn't feel right, yet Matt Damon dropping an F-bomb felt surprisingly poignant. It's a mixed bag in that department, but far from an outright negative in my eyes. Much of the thematic elements found in the original poem are still present here. Cunning over brute strength, an unstoppable drive to return home, and how hospitality is a cornerstone of any thriving civilization. These are universal themes, of course, but what Nolan does with them to make the story a bit more evergreen to our current age was actually pretty solid. Like in Oppenheimer, the world was irrevocably changed. For that film, it was the atomic bomb, but here it's the abandonment of what is known as Zeus's law, a universal understanding that the gods want us to be kind and hospitable to strangers and visitors. This is a cornerstone belief to Odysseus, and yet he partakes in the world's greatest prank, the Trojan horse. This gift that was used as a way to conquer Troy goes directly against this belief, and the ripple effects from this one moment begin to affect the entire world. From being turned into pigs to getting demolished by armored giants, Odysseus and his men are not welcomed anywhere, which causes many of them to stray even further from their noble beliefs. But while Oppenheimer was more of a cautionary tale, the Odyssey feels a bit more hopeful as a call to action to return to the old ways of treating others with kindness and respect. effect. Sure, it's a bit basic and cheesy, but that doesn't make the truth any less poignant. And it feeds into a super compelling third act that's so satisfying, so energizing, and so invigorating that my theater was clapping through most of it. You'd have thought a plane just landed after some bad weather, but maybe that's just what Nolan did here. Even with some minor hiccups and nitpicks here and there, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is pretty close to a miracle movie in this current age of blockbusters. There's an authenticity, a groundedness, a believability to a movie containing giants, witches, and unseen, wrathful gods that the average Hollywood director just wouldn't be able to accomplish. Not only is this an epic story that resonates with our real world and its issues, but it's also a personal one, as more and more of Nolan's outlooks and beliefs have begun to spill into his work, and I'm happy to see it. It's not trying to be a 100% faithful adaptation of the poem, and I'm honestly glad it's not. The influence of the Odyssey has been felt in modern storytelling since forever, sometimes overtly obvious and sometimes a bit more subtly. To attempt to retell the building block of storytelling kinda just feels like a moot point. But to question it, re-examine it, re-evaluate it, that's what makes this stand out for me. It's not only a film filled with Nolan's trademarks, but it shows the continued growth he's experiencing on his creative journey. So while it's probably too soon to start throwing around the best title, we can at least feel comfort in the fact that summer has found its one true blockbuster. For my rating, I'm giving this film 4 Trojan horses out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Martini Shot. If you saw the Odyssey, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. And if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly.